Good evening, and good evening to Dr. Stephen Green, Mr. Sam Kelly, Mr. Henry St. Pierre, and Mr. Joseph Tuttle. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to the 2026 Magis Awards ceremony. I'm Father Bob Pecoraro, the president of Cheverus High School, and it's a great honor to be with you here tonight. And let us begin, as we begin all things at Cheverus, praying in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Gracious God, send your blessing upon us as we recognize the 2026 Magis Award recipients tonight. We thank you for their example of service and dedication, their generosity and spirit of love. In the spirit of Magis, may we grow in affection for God, seek union with God, and deepen our devotion to what God desires for each one of us and for all of creation. In the face of so many reasons to be tired, distracted, or tempted to despair, may we be inspired by these Magis Award recipients and choose to be witnesses of faith, hope, and love. We ask this through Christ our Lord. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. The Magis Award is the highest award bestowed by Cheverus. The award acknowledges those who have embodied the Magis, Latin for more. The concept of the Magis focuses on the more universal good, that all things should be done for the greater glory of God. AMDG, ad maiorem Dei gloriam. We are now in the Easter season, a season of hope, when we are called to recognize God's presence in our world. We are reminded during the Easter that light will conquer darkness. The work and accomplishments of these Magis Award recipients represent the light that is so needed in our world. In both large and small ways, these remarkable members of our community serve as beacons for all of us and encourage each of us to live the Magis. The Magis calls each of us to reach further, to aspire for more, to reach closer to God, and to better serve the needs of God's people. When we live the Magis, our hearts are open to the work of God in our own lives, and we are empowered to use our gifts and talents to glorify God. This year's Magis Award recipients serve as a model to us all. They show us how we can be a channel of God's love. These remarkable members of our community serve as beacons for all of us and encourage us, each of us, to live the Magis. Tonight, these honorees, their accomplishments, their impact in our world and the community gathered here to celebrate them. This is the best of Cheverus. Before we present the awards, I want to thank the Magis Awards Selection Committee members, faculty members Helene Adams and Dr. Gary Nielsen, Kevin Gildart, member of the class of 1967, Tom Manning, member of the class of 1972, Jason Gendrasco, member of the class of 2002, Kaylee Day, member of the class of 2012, Kelly Gendron, and Randy Shaw. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration of all the nominees. And now I'm pleased to introduce and welcome Jerry Conley, a member of the class of 1972, past parent, and 2022 Magis Award recipient, who will introduce our first award recipient and his classmate, Dr. Stephen Green.
Good evening, everybody. First, Father Pecoraro, though I'm here with great humility to introduce my classmate, Stephen Green, a very deserving recipient of the Magis Award, I cannot take this stage without thanking you for all you have done for Cheverus High School and for the extended Cheverus community. As you transition leadership to Dr. Moran, our incoming president, and stand as the last Jesuit to lead our great school, I speak for many when I say you have been the best of the best. You will leave this school in a much better place than you found it. I'm sure I speak for everyone in this room in thanking you for all you've done for Cheverus, but specifically for my class of 1972. We appreciated your efforts during our golden celebration, our 50th anniversary 3 years ago, and it will not ever be forgotten. My thoughts about you, Father Pecoraro, are an appropriate segue to my remarks on behalf of the incredible Dr. Stephen Green. To paraphrase one of Steve's comments about himself, he once said that he was either going to save souls by becoming a priest, like you, or save lives by becoming a cardiologist. Well, Stephanie's happy with the choice he made. And save lives he has done. Over his career, he has performed over 28,000 heart catheterizations, whatever they are, by clearing blockages from the arteries or valves that threaten the lives of his patients. More importantly, he has not only performed thousands of these procedures, but he has also trained over 300 other cardiologists to do the very same thing. If that isn't being a person for others, I don't know what is. Still, it isn't as though Steve woke up one day and said, I'm a doctor. No, it all really started at Cheverus High School a little over 50 years ago. After dutifully putting in his 9 years at St. Joseph's Grammar School, he arrived at Cheverus as one of approximately 90 freshmen. Unfortunately, all boys. None of us had the maturity or leadership which young women provide at the school these days. Like the rest of us in 1968, Steve had no clue what lay ahead for him. But, as happens to most who are lucky enough to go to Cheverus, Steve figured things out. He ran cross country with the likes of Dr. Peter Millard, Magis Award recipient, Peter Benoit, Joni's brother, and the late John Miller, our classmate, who became a headmaster at the Woodside Priory, a Benedictine high school in California. And of course, he hung around with some of the regular dubs, like myself, and Mike Clark, and even Danny Paul, who was with us for a year. It became clear to everyone, even us dubs, that Steve Green was going places. He ended up as a busy stage star for Father Lynn's in the school's yearly plays as a standout member of the Cheverus Macaulay Dramatic Society. He was a brilliant member of the Cheverus High School TV quiz team with Jim Cludia, who's here tonight, and the late Marty Barron. Academically, of course, he was in the honors division, then referred to, strangely, as the D section. And of course, that was to shield folks like myself and Tommy Manning, who were in the A division, or the animal division, as it was known. And, we didn't realize what was going on and didn't know that we were not one of the smart kids. Well, true to being in the honors division, Steve was on the honor roll every single quarter he attended Cheverus. By the time he graduated, he had the confidence of a lion. No surprise, Dartmouth wanted him. The rest of us were lucky to get into this place. But he excelled at Dartmouth. He took his academic powers and combined them with his Cheverian values. He decided that medicine offered him the best opportunity to be a person for others. After Dartmouth, it was on to Tufts University School of Medicine, where he also excelled, and then an internship and a residency at Cornell Cooperative Hospital, and then he took a fellowship in cardiology at the North Shore University Hospital, also affiliated with Cornell. All of this education and training led him to an outstanding and rewarding career as a cardiologist. He treated thousands of patients for cardiac issues with surgery and other treatments. As important as this work was, as I indicated earlier, he did something even more valuable. He taught young doctors and trained them how to do what he could do. By training hundreds of doctors in waiting, he multiplied his ability to save lives by the thousands. His excellence at teaching is summed up by the fact that he was selected as Teacher of the Year 5 times during a 15-year period of his teaching at a variety of different hospitals. Steve Green is no ordinary Sheverian, yet he regularly attends schools gatherings, as Father Pecoraro can say, in New York City, where he and his wonderful wife and partner, Dr. Stephanie Green, now live. His popularity in the Cheverus community is verified by the number of 72 grads in the audience here tonight. I assure you that none of us here from 72 can claim any of the Cheverus honor roll cards, which he got on a regular basis. Besides knowing Steve, all of us, all we really have going for us, the other 72s, is that we have Rick Wright as our classmate and class agent. Rick makes it his job to nominate all of us for various Cheverus awards. And thank you, Rick. I know you're watching here tonight. We love you, Rick. Thank you. Without any further ado, I want to introduce Steve Green, my classmate and worthy Magis Award winner.
I don't know, I might be shorter than his introduction. You don't mind. All right. Thank you, Jerry Conley, first Magis Award winner for our class, who 2 years ago introduced Dr. Peter Millard for the same award then, 2 years ago. Being here for that, I realized Jerry was an excellent speaker and would be brief and to the point. Thanks to Robert Pecoraro and the Magis Committee for considering my nomination. And thanks to the Rick Wright, where are you, Rick? Who nominated me. He's a wonderful classmate who does so much for Cheverus media in general and our class in particular. Rick was the lead in our senior play, Bye Bye Birdie, and I was blessed with playing Conrad Birdie in that same play. More on that later. Cheverus was very important to me during my high school years, but also for the rest of my life. Those years, 1968 to 1972, were during the Vietnam War, and so were filled with political controversy and anti-war sentiment. Richard Nixon was the president for much of that time. The first Earth Day was in 1970. My freshman Latin teacher, Father Bove, was a good friend to the famous Jesuit of that time, Father Daniel Barragan, known for his anti-war and pacifist views. Father Bove was a wonderful teacher and man, patient with us in our first year of 4 years of Latin. Another one of my teachers, Father J. Vasmar Dalton, was a great human being and American history teacher. We would frequently get him off topic, as Mike O'Brien and Jim Clutie could attest to in the D group. And after about 15 minutes of talking, he would suddenly stop and have a big grin on his face and say, "You got me again." And I remember him saying many times, "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." Father Richard Linz, my AP English teacher, and Mrs. Mary Campbell, the famous Mary Campbell, my French teacher, were the faculty leaders for the musical my senior year, Bye Bye Birdie, and eventually chose me to play Conrad Birdie in the play, which required 3 solo songs in the play, at least 2 of which didn't have a melody at all. That play was a great aid, however, for my future public speaking. After singing in front of a full audience in the Cheverus Auditorium, it was easy to do many speeches in the New York area, as well as in Paris, Australia, Tokyo, Las Vegas, Singapore, a lot of places. Of course, those were predominantly PowerPoint presentations, not songs. After graduating from medical school and preparing for my internship in internal medicine at Cornell, Memorial Sloan Kettering, and North Shore University Hospital, I had a few weeks to get married and go on our honeymoon. Prior to that, I was able to make a little money for that honeymoon by working with my father unloading a freighter at the Maine State Pier. The other longshoremen who had known my father and grandfather working the ships there loved it. They called me the doc on the dock. Prior to that, I had many other part-time or summer jobs, which included being a caddy, dishwasher, busboy with Mike Clark, secretary, chimney sweep, toll collector, analytic chemist, and janitor. These jobs helped me understand that to judge people not by what they do for work, but how they respect others. After my 3 years residency in internal medicine, I did a fellowship in cardiology for another 2 years, and then became an interventional cardiologist, now 13 years after graduating from high school. Interventional cardiology was a new field at the time. The subspecialty was just beginning. One-snake catheters, long, thin, hollow tubes from the arm or the leg up to the heart, took x-ray pictures looking for blockages, and then if we found some, threading a little wire, the thickness of a human hair, down the artery, snaking it around the blockage, and then threading a little balloon on that wire and inflating the balloon and pushing the blockage aside, sort of like being a plumber. It was a developing field, and soon we were using lasers and diamond-tipped drills inside the heart. Coronary stents, shaped a little like the spring in a ballpoint pen, were developed, and we participated in many research trials to bring these devices forward, as well as developing blood-thinning medicines. I was part of the studies of the first FDA-approved biologic medicine ever, TPA, the clot dissolver or clot buster, to dissolve the clot in the artery of the heart during a heart attack. After more research, we found that the balloons and stents worked even better for heart attack victims than the clot buster medications. This meant that there was a great need for more cardiac catheterization laboratories and interventional cardiologists all over the country. But the clot buster medicines and the stents required taking care of those heart attack victims within 6 hours of their beginning symptoms so that the heart muscle wouldn't die. Teams of healthcare workers led by interventional cardiologists have to be available 24/7 for that, to do this. It was always very rewarding to rush into the hospital at 2 o'clock in the morning to try to save someone's life, but also made for a very tiring day the next day, which usually started at 7 o'clock in the morning. Heart attacks don't pay attention to the time of day. One of the things I learned in the catheterization lab doing those 28,000 cases I performed during my career is that we're all the same on the inside. Taking pictures of a beating heart, you can't tell if a person is black, white, or purple. You cannot tell if they're Christian, Jewish, Hindu, or Muslim, rich or poor, they speak English or another language. We're all the same on the inside. We all deserve respect. As the teachers at Cheverus would tell you, teaching is very rewarding, and I always thought that with teaching, I was creating a legacy for my cardiology thoughts and ideas to the 300 cardiologists I trained, and the thousands of medical students and residents I taught in my 41 years of working as an academic teaching doctor. Working in the New York area, several miles east of New York City, I experienced many residents and fellows from other countries on visas, green cards, or first-generation citizens. They literally span the globe from Greece, Turkey, Jordan, Syria, Israel, Egypt, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Korea. You get the drift. They were from everywhere. Why they came here was always interesting. One doctor was a urologist in Baghdad, and his family was very connected to Saddam Hussein. But one day in the mail, he received an envelope with a bullet inside and a note that read, "You have 7 days to leave the country or else." He came to us, became an interventional cardiologist, and is now practicing in Phoenix, Arizona. All these immigrants wanted to come to America to train in cardiology. They were all very bright and hardworking. Most stayed here permanently. Some went home. Others go back to their country intermittently to help their native people. My Baghdad friend stayed here, did not go home, and is still alive. In summary, I want to say that Cheverus gave me an opportunity to grow into what I later became. I doubt whether my career would have been the same had I gone elsewhere to high school. My career showed me that humanity and goodness in all people, all races, all ethnicities, all religions. Being only 3 miles from Queens, New York City, one of the most diverse counties in the country, I saw daily how important the immigrant culture is to this country. We have all come from immigrants, and most of us do not have to go back too many generations to find our first generation here. This country was built by immigrants, and immigrants continue to be needed for this country to continue to grow. I want to thank you all for listening to my stories and thank my wife, Dr. Stephanie Green, for her continued support. I want to thank my local family members and the great members of the class of 1972 who came today. Thank you.
Congratulations, Steve. Thank you for your lifetime commitment to caring for patients and teaching the next generation of physicians. Now I'm pleased to welcome Jim Ward, member of the class of 1963, past parent, Magis Award recipient, and former member of the Board of Trustees, who will introduce our next award recipient and his classmate, Sam Kelly.
Good evening. It's my honor to introduce Sam, a friend of mine for close to 70 years. We first met somewhere back in the mid-50s on the playing fields of Greater Portland in the old Catholic school leagues. Sam went to St. Dominic's, I went to Cathedral. We won more of the games. But we went on from the grammar school to Cheverus High School, where we became good friends and teammates on the football team. You're going to hear, and you probably have already read, some of Sam's remarkable achievements. But I want to talk about the fact, for just a minute, about the fact that he is a humble guy. Sam served in Vietnam, and his platoon wrote a book about their experiences in Vietnam. It's a big hardcover book. And each member of the platoon was asked to write a chapter. So I just want to read Sam's words from the opening words from his chapter. I was born in the Irish section of Portland, a seaside city where virtually every neighbor was a Catholic. I was born in the winter of 1944 into a self-described upper poor family as the third of 4 boys. We never owned a car or a telephone, and my parents never had a checking or savings account. The monthly rent on our second floor, 3-bedroom, drafty apartment was $25. Sam's selection for the Magis Award was based primarily on his work with veterans. I'll list some of those right now. Vet to Vet, where 2 times a week he would go to the vet center as a peer companion for lonely veterans, people whose family had moved away. He provided assistance in obtaining benefits. He chaired fundraising committees. And he even hosted a TV show, Vet to Vet Maine, on public access TV. He was the recipient of the Altrusa International Foundation of Maine Volunteer of the Year. He was a recipient of the Myra Craft Community Most Valuable Player Award. That's Myra Craft of the New England Patriots Crafts. And he was a leader of an organization called Let's Talk America, whose purpose was to promote meaningful dialogue. Those were the types of achievements that led to Sam's becoming a Magis recipient. However, that is only part of the story of Sam Kelly. After graduation from college in 1967, Sam enlisted in the Army at a time when the war in Vietnam was peaking in both intensity and brutality. He went to officer candidate school and then shipped off to Vietnam and was soon appointed a platoon leader. The military strategy at that time was known as a war of attrition. And the tactics to execute that strategy, particularly for soldiers on the ground, was search and destroy missions. Many of you probably know what that is, but I'll just tell you that's where you went out into unfamiliar territory, dark jungles, 6-foot-high elephant grass, with the sole purpose of engaging with the enemy and engaging them in combat. It was brutal, and the casualty numbers soared. It was, to say the least, a very, very dangerous occupation. There are two events that occurred during Sam's time in Vietnam I just want to spend a little time on. One of those occurred after a firefight where the platoon regathered, and they quickly realized that one of their platoon members was not there. The operating mantra of the U.S. military is "no man left behind." Sam asked for volunteers to go out and recover this man. There were no volunteers. Sam had lost his rifle in the firefight, and he asked if someone would lend him their rifle because he was going to go out and recover that man. No volunteers. So Sam Kelly, this little guy from the bottom of High Street in Portland, set out to rescue his comrade, crawling on his belly through the dark jungle, unfamiliar territory, that the only thing you really knew about it was that it was loaded with the enemy. Sam brought that man back. The second event took place shortly after. Again, the platoon was gathered in a combat area, and all of a sudden, coming over the high grass was a hand grenade. Everybody scattered, as you would expect, except for one guy. Sam Kelly, without hesitation, grabbed that hand grenade and tossed it back. Now, the luck of the Irish was in play that day because the hand grenade was a dud, fortunately, because if it wasn't, we would be honoring Sam tonight posthumously. But based on his leadership, his courage, his valor under fire, his platoon has nominated him for the nation's highest military order, the Congressional Medal of Honor. And that application is sitting before Congress today. There's one of the aspects of Sam I want to talk about. Now, those who know Sam, you guys right here, know that he could be a very stubborn guy. And that is probably the greatest understatement in the history of the planet. About 12 years ago, Sam was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. That's one of the bad ones, with a very low 5-year survival rate. His local specialist had no answers and basically told him, get your affairs in order fast. Now, Sam had golf scheduled for that day. Those of you who know Sam, nothing interferes with golf. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So after his 18 holes, He sat down to confront his situation, and he proceeded with the same courage, facing down a terminal cancer diagnosis that he applied to his service in Vietnam. He went to Boston, where he received treatment under a brutal clinical trial at Mass General. And today, Sam remains cancer-free and still lets nothing interfere with golf. Try to schedule a lunch with this guy sometime. Ain't gonna happen. Anyway, that is Sam Kelly, a 2026 Magis Award recipient. It is my great honor to have the privilege of introducing him. Sam, you're the best. Accepting the award on behalf of Sam is his son, Matt Kelly, Chevrolet 94.
Thank you so much, Jim. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am deeply honored to be up here tonight to accept the Magis Award on behalf of my father, Sam Kelly. My father is a man of humble beginnings, growing up at the bottom of High Street, down by Commercial Street, docks on a dock, as we heard. It was a different time in the 1950s and 60s. He was playing with his buddies down at the coal pit. It was a place with rodents and industrial grit. It was a long way from the high-end restaurants and cruise ships of today you'll find on Commercial Street. As a kid, Sam Kelly loved everything about Chevrolet High School, especially the Fighting Irish-inspired Gold Dome football helmets. But private school for one of their 4 boys was way beyond the Kelly family budget. His family attended St. Dominic's Church on Lower State Street, and it was there, an 8th grade kid, that he was on the receiving end of a generous parish family that helped him pay for tuition to attend Chevrolet. I don't know all the details of what daily high school life was like for my dad in the early 1960s. I'm really not sure if he attended a spiritual retreat, helped as the Key Club was preparing Thanksgiving meals for local families, or was part of a senior year service project. Call me a tad skeptical, but I'll let you ask some of his classmates after what they recall. What I do know is that he was very aware of the generosity of those families at St. Dominic's, and I have to think his teachers at Chevrolet were doing their best to instill a few of the core teachings of St. Ignatius to that rough and tumble class of 1963. Beyond for the greater glory of God, there are a few maxims from St. Ignatius that I think my father has embodied. One is love ought to show itself in deeds more than words. Jim Ward, you beautifully summed up kind of the later stage of my father's life in his military service, but I wanted to roll back the clock to my childhood when he was showing love and getting involved and lending a hand in many ways. When our family settled in Scarborough, my father threw himself into the fabric of our community. In the earliest years, I remember him running the JC's Casino Night fundraiser and playing with the Wheel of Fortune wheel and the craps dice. I vividly remember at a Little League awards ceremony as a 12-year-old, having played for 5 seasons, my dad receiving an award for 10 years of service. He had volunteered with Scarborough Little League not for a season or 2, but for a full decade. He coached kids, organized schedules, did whatever it took to make sure the program thrived. He was doing it because he believed every kid deserved a chance to play, and also he loved youth sports and being with neighborhood kids and his own children. He also loved to give a pep talk and envisioned himself as the Lou Holtz or Lou Piniella of Greater Portland. Similarly, he was coaching youth girls basketball in town long before my sister ever hit the court. It provided joy to him. St. Ignatius talked about how God made us to be joyful, and Sam Kelly for sure has found joy in service. On the technology front, my dad never figured out how to program the VCR or update the clock on the microwave. He certainly knew very little about emerging technology that was public cable in the early 1980s, but he somehow found himself on the production team lugging recording equipment to school board meetings and to the Augusta Civic Center to record high school basketball. Yes, there may have been a view that local government should be more transparent, but I think mostly he did it because he thought it was cool to have youth sports available on TV for more people to see. To my daughter Nora in the audience, this was the closest thing to an Instagram highlight reel back in 1984. Once the town council meetings was recorded and he had that microphone in hand, it of course made sense that he would become the host of a local call-in show called Friday Forum, hosted by none other than Sam Kelly. His commitment to service also extended to the institutions he cared about. At Macaulay High School, where my mom and sister attended, he helped with many fundraising efforts and even coached a softball team that my sister played on. I'm not sure their record was any better than those Little League teams, but he served out of joy and he loved every minute of it. Later, he supported and helped launch Project Grace, a nonprofit serving families in need in Scarborough and South Portland, because he remembered what it was like when your own family needed some help. He brought that same spirit to causes that demanded courage. When there was plans to build a controversial ash recycling plant in Scarborough, my father stepped up to assist their neighbor, Kate Berduis, who was here tonight, who was leading the fight against it. Kate was the committed environmentalist. Sam was the guy who thought it was a bad idea run by bad people and a fight worth having. At a time when so many of us have grown frustrated by how divided our conversations have become, in the early 2000s, my father helped establish Let's Talk America, a once-a-month in-person forum where local citizens could come together, discuss a hot-button issue of the day in a constructive and respectful way. He didn't just wish for better discourse, he built a table and invited people to sit down at it. That group met once a month for 15 years at the Scarborough Public Library. That, to me, is the essence of the Magis Award, ad majorem Dei gloriam, for the greater glory of God. For my father may not have said those words before heading out to a Little League field, a basketball court, or the town library, but he lived them every single time. St. Ignatius also said that we should laugh and grow strong. Through years of service and helping communities grow stronger, no one has laughed more than Sam Kelly. I want to close by saying this. My father's life of service did not begin with a grand plan. It began with his mother's love and a parish that believed in a young man's potential. St. Dominic's gave my father a chance, and Chevres gave him a foundation. He took both and spent a lifetime paying them forward. As a student, business leader, warrior, coach, servant, husband, father, and friend, that is his legacy. And I could not be more proud to stand up here by his side as he receives this award. Thank you.
I got about half hours, never mind. No, that's very, very touching. Thank you very, very much. Those are such kind words and so appreciated. And I am just wrote a couple notes. I am both humbled and proud to have been nominated for this very special award. Thank you to the Jesuits and lay teaching staff who believed in me, guided me all along the way to college and a successful career. And I want to thank my wife and family for always supporting me. I just want to say I'm one lucky guy. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Sam. Through your commitment to your fellow veterans and community, you are a model of one of the most important ministries of our faith, the ministry of presence. Thank you. I'm pleased now to welcome Mr. Dan LaValle, member of the class of 1984, who is completing his 29th year of teaching at Chevres, a coach, a past parent, who will introduce Hank St. Pierre.
On a kind of an introductory note, I've heard Jerry speak many times, and I opened the program and realized I was going to speak after him. I'll try and hold your sneakers. Hank St. Pierre is a truly outstanding teacher. He taught me biology and physics in the early 1980s. He did a great job of herding the cats in the Wild West of all boys Chevres while still teaching us to be good scientists. One of my favorite stories was the urinalysis experiment, when you test urine for pH and various chemicals. Someone in the class, might have been me, spilled a test tube on the lab bench. Hank looked to the sky, and my guess is his internal conversation went something like, God, please not let me throttle this child. But your will be done. Amen. He then said, I'll see you at 2:15 to clean all of the benches in case one of the other yahoos did the same thing, and I didn't catch him. We taught across the hall from each other for 15 years. We had running jokes about conceptual physics being magic class because there was little or no mathematics in it, and math just being a tool to solve physics problems. He was adored by his students. Probably the highlight of almost every senior's last year at Chevrolet was building their mousetrap car and racing it down the hallway. He made even the last week of senior year fun. He was and is incredibly patient. If you got joke from Hank, you really earned it. He gave multiple choice problems where you get partial credit for incorrect answers by showing your work. Let me clue you in on a teacher's secret. We give multiple choice because they're easy to correct, but not his. He had to read all the chicken scratching for partial credit because he wanted to give every student the best chance they could to show what they knew. That's the kind of teacher he was. Despite being a Lewiston Blue Devil, he understands and loves Chevrolet. He coached basketball, served on the review board, was awarded the Duffy Award for Outstanding Teacher, and went on Kairos 4 many moons ago. He still runs the basketball clock at home games despite having retired in 2017. Yeah. He looks great, though. And now for the audience participation part of this introduction. How many people had Mr. St. Pierre as their teacher? On a personal note, I should disclose that Hank is my stepfather. He entered our lives in 1978, and we have been immeasurably blessed by his presence, care, and love since. He has taught me so much about so many things over my lifetime, and I can only hope that I emulate his patience and wisdom. It is with great pride and thanks that I call Henry St. Pierre forward to receive the Magis Award.
Wow. Thank you, Dan. Beautiful introduction. Father Pecoraro, thank you. Thank you for the committee that allowing me to stand up here tonight and be honored. Faculty, colleagues, family, friends. It's just been an amazing, amazing journey. My journey started 74 years ago, April 10th, 1952. Well, probably not 52, probably 66 by the time I was probably moving around. But I have so many people to thank along the way. My students that I've had over the years probably didn't realize that they had an impact on me, as well as hopefully me having an impact on them as well in many, many different ways. I've had a really blessed life. If I had to redo it again, I'd not change a thing. I know a lot of people that say they probably would have. But it all started out in Lewiston, where I grew up, at a parochial school, St. Joseph's, which is now, I think it's a vet center at this point. But it was a K through 8 school. And I think my first inclination of feeling good about giving back was from the Sisters of Mercy at the parochial school that had me be their supply boy. So my job was to simply make sure that I go into the stock room every day and make sure that all the classrooms were fitted with pencils and pens and what have you. So I did that, and I just got a good feeling from it. And so I think that was the start of where I am today. But I worked at the school. I then graduated and worked at the convent and at the rectory at the church. And it was something, like I said, it just kind of felt good. And not that I was a strange kid in having those sensations, but another little quirk, I guess, growing up there was that I think it was my 8th grade when I graduated. We went to a separate junior high for 1 year in 9th grade and then went on to the high school. But my 8th year, at the end of the school year, graduation, I was presented a pin, which I've held dear all these years. In fact, I'm wearing it tonight. I put it on. Saw it. And it's a little cross with a blue background. And what it represents is that I had a perfect attendance. My 8th, hard to believe, but there's the proof. So after parochial school, off to high school, I was a member of the Key Club, and so we did a lot of community service work there. And I was in the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, but I never made it beyond a point in the Boy Scouts where I achieved the highest honors there, and that's one regret that I guess I have. But we did do a lot with the Key Club. A lot of that memory came back when I started at Cheverus and saw how much the Key Club at Cheverus was involved with a lot of community action, and during those years that I was at Cheverus, I helped out as much as I could during their turkey drive, delivering boxes to needy families during that time. After high school, off to college. And while I was in college, my senior year, I started tutoring incoming freshmen that needed the extra help. And then helping out freshman labs, which I felt pretty comfortable in because that was what my degree was going to be. And then graduation came. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to be doing. I knew I wanted to teach, I wanted to coach. That was the path that I was taking. And so I ended up my first year at Lisbon High School. Not really my choice. I had applied to other places, but I have no regrets. It was a good starting point, and as nervous as I was that first year, I think I grew tremendously during that time. And again, at Lisbon High School, I got involved with a lot of community action stuff as well, and just add to my resume. And then from there, after 2 years, I decided I wanted something else out of life. And it was at that point I was starting to think about maybe mission work. And so I said, I'm not attached to anybody here, and now would be a good time to do volunteering work wherever I could go. And so I applied to the Peace Corps and luckily went in and spent some time in Malaysia, got home early because I contracted one of their many parasites that they had. So I came home to get better with the idea that as soon as I got healthier, they'd send me back either to Malaysia or someplace else that was having some openings. And that is where my path in my life changed. Because when I came home to recuperate, I started doing some building on the side, some carpentry work, which I'd been doing quite a while now. And I was sent to a job on Little Sebago Lake, which I never left. And 47 years later, here I am. It's been interesting. Married a widow at 29. Never married myself before. But she had a wonderful family. And I think they liked my dog and my canoe that I brought into the family. But one day, my oldest son, Dan, came home and said, hey, you know, I think I'd like to try out this Chevers school. And, you know, we talked about it, and we said, sure. Sounds like a great idea. And so he took off freshman year, and off he went. And I think it was his second year, as I remember, he came home and he said, hey, Hank, he said, well, I don't know what you call him back then, but he said, you know, there's going to be an opening at Chevers High School. They're looking for a biology and physics teacher. And I'm like, wow, biology, that's what my major was. And I feel pretty confident with physics. So I said, what do I need to do? He says, well, just contact the school. And so one thing led to the next. I applied in 1981, I think it was, or 82, and started teaching right away. And I'd never heard of Chevers High School before. Not growing up in high school, it wasn't until I actually went in to see what it was all about. And I got to tell you, I was quite impressed. There's definitely a different atmosphere in there. There's a different community than any other school I'd ever been in. And so I figured I found my Disney World to work in. And the other thing about Chevers is that there's endless opportunities for helping out. I mean, there's outing clubs that I got involved with Erica Ryle and her group, and doing some research out on Swans Island. Kids would do all the research, and I went as the bus driver, and the cook, and the cleanup guy, while they went off and did their work out in the field. Math team was another one, Joan Ringer. Always conned me into staying late to do some work with the math team when they had their meets. May projects, great opportunity. Steve Delvey and I were sort of owners of that program for quite a few years. Day of Giving was something that I initiated. I knew it was happening in Portland, but wasn't sure how to get involved with it, and got in touch with some other Chevers grads, alumni, and they told me what I need to do, and so we were able to get students out in the field on that Day of Giving. And I think, I'm not sure if they're still doing that now or not, but it was definitely heartwarming. International Club was another one. I had a Korean student who kept pestering me about wanting to do Ramen Noodle Day to raise money. He wanted to start an international club so that he could show Chevers all the different ethnic groups that went to school there. So I passed it through the business office, and they weren't happy about it because we were going to take money from the kitchen by selling our ramen noodles. But we did it anyhow. And, you know, $2 for a bowl of ramen noodles, so we made a pretty good profit on it. And we ended up with a fair amount of money with a few days that we did. And from that, we had an international night. We opened up the gym, and we had all the different groups, whether they were from Asia, Africa, as many groups as we had, set up their little booth with all the different types of food, and it's a huge success. And again, I'm not sure whether that's still going on. I'd like to think it is. Kairos was another one. I was on the fourth Kairos with Father, I think it was Father Belcher and John Predmore, Father John Predmore. And that was an eye-opener. And then, of course, the coaching opportunities were endless. There were more opportunities to coach sports any season that you wanted. So I got involved with a lot of that. One of the things I did in the first year that I was there, which was the year that actually Joe Tuttle, who will be coming up shortly, his class, there was somebody in their class, and I was trying to figure out who it was the other day. There was a great artist. I know he went to Tulane University, but I couldn't remember his name. But and a lot of people, when they walk through the old gym, they might notice that there's a symbol in there, a wooden. Well, it's a Chevrolet shield that is probably 4 feet by 4. Well, it's 4 feet diameter, and actually it's probably bigger than that. Now I think about it. But in any case, I cut that out. I got permission from the school. It might have been Gary Hoyt. I don't know. That to make this Chevrolet shield to put in the gym, and so I cut out the circle, and I had this student who was a tremendous artist, and he was the one that actually drew that from scratch. So very impressive, and I'm impressed it still hangs there today. And then I decided that maybe Cheverus was a great place to work, but I was still looking for something more. And I should have stopped there, but I didn't. So I decided I was going to go into business. I had developed enough skills that I was going to start going out and building homes and do some remodeling. Hooked up with another guy, and we started our own building business. Did very well. And then one day, I ran into a former student of mine, Michael Robinson, who is a professor at the University of Hartford now, and he does studies on, he's written actually a few books on the North and South Pole, and very interesting guy. But anyway, I ran into him, and he said, what's going on? What are you doing these days? And here I am in my work jeans and dirty T-shirt, and I said, well, I'm not at Cheverus anymore. I said, I left, and I'm building homes. And he looked at me, and he said, why are you doing that? Why are you wasting your time? I said, what do you mean? He says, your talents are in the classroom. You really need to go back. And we talked a little bit more. But those words stuck with me. And I just couldn't get it out of my head. And so I made the decision shortly after to apply going back to school and hopefully getting my job back at Cheverus. Now, as luck would have it, excuse me, I applied to Cheverus. There was just a new physics teacher that had just been hired. So my chances of getting in were probably quite slim. But I got a job back at my old haunt, Lisbon High School. So I put in my second tour at Lisbon High School, and that's where I met Bill Burke, who was a student of mine back at Cheverus back in 1981, 82. And so we taught a couple of years, and I ended up getting the job. But it was kind of a weird situation because I was still waiting to hear from John Mullen, who was the principal at Cheverus, and he had called me to say that they were going to make a decision within the next 24 hours. Well, the principal at Lisbon High School said, Hank, if you want the job, I'm offering it to you, but I don't want you to come to me 24, 48 hours from now and tell me that you're ditching us to go back to Cheverus. And I said, I wouldn't do that to you. And then within that 24 hours, John Mullen called to tell me that the job was open. And so I told John that I had committed myself to teach at Lisbon and that that's where I'd end up. Well, again, luck would have it that within just a couple of years, the job opened up again at Cheverus. It was like almost fate. And I ended up getting my job back, and that's where I spent the last 20 some odd years of my teaching career and retiring about 8 years ago. A few years back before I retired, Gary Hoyt, athletic director of teacher coach at Chevers, came up to me one day and gave me a book. It was simply called The Carpenter. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. He's giving me a book to read about somebody that does what I do. And I took the book. It was very easy reading. In fact, I just recently reread it again. But it was a story about a carpenter who talked about his masterpieces that he built. But it was more than just building the masterpieces. It was more building people, showing people how to be better people, how to succeed in life. And the premise was that all you needed to do is to love, serve, and care. And, after reading the book the first time, it dawned on me that, geez, I think I fall into that category. I think I do a lot of that. And so I really appreciate Gary, that book. And I'll probably reread it again at some point. But those are three things that I've really thought about, that loving yourself, loving others, having people love you, serving people, they'll serve you back. Same thing with caring. If you have a caring attitude, people will care about you as well. So that's the end of my journey. And I do want to thank my family for being here, and my colleagues that I miss so dearly. And especially my wife, Pat, who all these years have allowed me those hours and days of being away so that I could go and help other people. And so for that, I love you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Hank, and thank you for your enduring loyalty to our students and to our mission. And now I'm pleased to welcome Ernie Salamone, member of the class of 1980, past coach, and member of the Chevres Hall of Fame as coach for the 1985 football team, who will introduce his friend, Joe Tuttle.
Good evening. When Joe Tuttle learned he was receiving the Magis Award, his first response was not excitement. It was something closer to mild concern. Joe was perfectly comfortable helping organize an event like this. Being honored at one is another matter entirely. So if you look slightly uneasy tonight, please know that is simply humility in action. In the Ignatian tradition, Magis does not mean doing more for recognition. It means choosing what more fully serves God and others. It's about depth, generosity, and fidelity in the ordinary moments of life. Those who live it rarely draw attention to themselves. That is Joe Tuttle. I met Joe when I was 17 years old. For 46 years, I have watched him live his vocation quietly and faithfully. He has never needed a title or platform to serve. He simply shows up again and again wherever he is needed. When I was building my lobster plant, I truly would have been lost without him. Joe gave his time, his strength, his wisdom, and more patience than I probably deserved. We made long trips, lifted heavy equipment, solved problems that I often introduced with the phrase, "Joe, how hard can it be?" He knew that meant trouble, and he still came anyway. I had to insist he accept any compensation at all. What mattered to him was not payment or praise. What mattered was helping a friend. And I'm not the only one. I'm one of many. There's a story from Joe's high school years that captures his character. In the fourth overtime of a basketball game, with an undefeated season on the line, Joe was fouled with no time remaining on the clock. Calmly, without drama, he made the first shot of a 1-and-1 to secure the victory. It was a defining moment, and he never speaks of it. That quiet competence, doing what must be done, and stepping aside has marked his entire life. In the Confiteor, we pray, and what I have done and what I have failed to do. Joe Tuttle lives in such a way that very little is left undone. He notices what other needs, accompanies people in difficulty, and he goes the extra mile. Not because anybody is watching, but because it's simply who he is. The Jesuit call is to be men for others. Joe has lived that call without fanfare, without self-promotion, and without expectation of reward. Tonight, Cheverus High School recognizes what many of us have known for decades, that quiet fidelity, steady generosity, and humble service are the truest forms of greatness. It is my profound honor to introduce Magis Award recipient, Mr. Joseph Tuttle.
Good evening, and congratulations to my fellow recipients. It's an honor to be here tonight among such a great group. It's an overwhelming feeling when Ernie Salamone, along with Stephen E., excuse me, stopped by my home to give the news of the Magis Award. The first thing I thought were past recipients, some great men and women, some I know personally and have admired for years. When I remember Cheverus, I think about a place that remained with me long after I have left. The values that were taught and the relationships that were built are still a part of my life today. You don't realize at the time, but over the years, it becomes clear how much those experiences shaped you. There are so many people who made the Cheverus experience memorable. Those relationships formed at such a young age are still part of my life. I have so many families that I am blessed to say are my friends. The Costigans, the Nees, the Salamones, and the Cooksons, just to name a few. I was very fortunate to have a classmate, Caitlin Cookson, and his mom, Diane, in my life as such a young adult and to this very day. Caitlin hasn't been in the area since college. However, I'm blessed to say our friendship remains strong and intact. Some of my favorite memories with Diane is to stop by, see what she was doing for projects around her house, asking how everybody was doing that we all knew, and conversations always had a way of reverting back to the Cheverus families and the faculty members. How people were doing and what was going on in their lives. It's a sense of connection that has remained with me throughout the years, and it was just about being at Cheverus those few years, but about building something that has stayed with me well beyond that. On a recent Saturday, I had the privilege of stopping by Cheverus and joining a group that I've been trying to become of for quite some time. And that group was the people that were able to work out with Dan Costigan. And I gotta say, that's not a very small group. So I took a little tour with Dan, and it's amazing. I didn't realize it was an old part of the locker room. And it hasn't changed. They don't use it much anymore. And then we went to the track where we ran into some of the coaches. It was nice, some of the football coaches. And then Dan explained what we were going to do. I'm like just having a nice conversation. We're going to stretch a little bit, do a short exercise, and then post-stretch. It was going to be an easy workout. And if you know Dan Costigan, he doesn't lie. It was an easy workout, for sure, for one of us. Walking through that building again, seeing the changes, seeing what have changed and hasn't changed, you realize that it still reflects the values that were taught there years ago. The consistency, you just don't find anywhere. And it's something that you appreciate more now than ever. There have been some extraordinary people that have impacted my life and many part of this service community. One of those being Coach Bob Brewer. Mr. Brewer's calm and calm demeanor left an impact on a lot of students, players, as well as myself. I'm fortunate to be a part of the 81 basketball team that gathers every August up at Madina Wells Camp. And I can say when Stanley Wright arrives, a little on the later side, that he will lead us in a prayer from Mr. Brewer. There'll be many conversations about Mr. Brewer. One of them that we'll all speak about is Mr. Hoyt's mentioning at Mr. Brewer's service that it sure would be nice someday when Mr. Brewer's name is etched in the gym floor at Chever's High School. So deserving of a great man. And when we talk about family, there are two people I wish were here tonight. It would be my parents, Joe and Barbara Tuttle. My mother had, besides raising 6 kids, worked at East End Children's Workshop, where she was a strong advocate for single moms, and upon her retirement, there was a room dedicated in her name, a testament for her hard work and dedication. My dad, besides working heavily, he was heavily involved at St. Joe's Church. He was part of the men's league that ultimately became the Knights of Columbus. He was a tireless volunteer at many church events. He was the head usher for as long as I can remember. Shortly after his passing, they dedicated the handicap ramp at Chever's in the back in his name. And my dad always took pleasure in helping all his kids with painting around the house, was his big forte, or completed small projects for his family. One of my favorite memories of my parents began when their grandchildren were young, and that's with the Sunday dinners, such a good family thing. And we recently took that to our own home, and it's been great. There's nothing better than having your family, you laughing among people, and just, it's good. You can't beat it. And I talk about a lot of things at work, and that's one of them, and it's always, I can count on my colleagues, Bill McHugh and Don Larry, asking, how was the Sunday dinner? And with a big smile on my face, it was just great. I want to thank so many people, Dan Hart, Dan Koskian, Steve Delvey, Stephen E., Kaylin Cookson, and Diane, for their kind words in their nomination process. These people held a special place in my heart, and their friendships are very important to me. I would like to thank my family for being here for this special moment. Mitchell and his fiancée, Mary, Jacob and his girlfriend, Emily, and Hannah and our family friend, Kate. This wonderful night wouldn't have been possible without the kind and generous effort of my good friend, Ernie Salamone. It's humbling to be recognized, especially by someone like Ernie, who I have so much respect for. Ernie have been, like Ernie had mentioned, we've been friends since our high school days in football. Ernie's certainly one of a kind. Over the years, I have seen his generosity has made a difference in all the people around him. I've watched former players that have coached and demanded so much that he coached and demanded so much from him, show so much love and respect for him. He makes a meaningful difference in the lives of people around him. And I'd like to thank, and last, I'd like to thank my wife Kathy, who did all this hard work, all the emails and everything like that. And kind of the running joke, if you kind of notice it, it was difficult to speak. So we kind of had a running joke, you know, that it got to a point I got choked up so much, you know. She just said, "Yeah, you're just a hot mess," and I'm just amazed at the wonderful how everybody did here tonight. It was just, again, but it's a privilege to be here. And so I'll quickly go through this. This tie clip I have is from her. It's from her ceremony. Oh, come on. So it's from the 1950s, where instead of a Chevrolet ring, you get this Chevrolet clasp. And he would just happen to, someone that knew him, happened to pass it on to him, and he gave it to me. It was good. So, but what I'm getting at, the big thing was, I'd gotten it from Ernie. Kathy hadn't seen when I showed it to him. It was so great. It was just out of this world kind. And but she had to say, "Did you cry when I gave it to you?" And so I kind of, you know, almost kind of insulted, you know. It's like, what do you, come on. And she goes, "Well," and I said, "No, too much." This award means a great deal to me. Not as just a recognition, but a reflection of everything that Chevis and its community stands for. I am grateful to have been a part of it, and I'm so thankful for the role it played in my life. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Joe. You have embraced and lived out what it means to truly be a person for and with others, and thank you for that. Thank you again to Jerry, Jim, Dan, and Ernie for introducing our awards recipients. Let's give the award recipients one final round of applause. Thank you again for joining us for this evening. Please join us for a reception just outside the auditorium in the lobby. Good night and God bless.